Welcome everyone to today's CPCO retirement presentation. We are very pleased that you're able to join us. We will be recording our session today and we'll have it posted on CPCO's website in the very near future for those who would like to have continued access. As the presentation evolves, you're welcome to put questions into the Q&A function, which is at the very bottom of your screen in the Zoom area. The chat, we will also try to respond to those questions throughout the workshop. If there are any questions not answered during the workshop, we will try to address them at the very end of the presentation. We welcome today our CPCO President, Mike McPherson, and our Executive Director, Joe Geiser. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our special speakers this morning, Stephen Wong, Director of Benefits with RTOERO. And joining him is Anya Ramprasad, Coordinator of Benefits with RTOERO. Following the retirement presentation, we will also be hearing from Antonella Rubino, Support Services Advisor with CPCO. She will briefly share some very critical information for those of you who may be interested in continuing to work as a retired principal or vice principal following your retirement. Finally, we will also have some concluding remarks from our Executive Director, Joe Geiser, at the very end. And Stephen, on to you.
Great, thank you so much. I'll begin by sharing my screen. Just give me one moment. Thank you very much. So as mentioned, I am going to be spending the next hour and a half or so. I'll try and cut it a bit shorter than that to give you some March break back, but also to give Antonella some time to share her slides. So I did see a question pop in about sharing your screen and mute. So we actually will be handling questions through the chat box. Through the Q&A, sorry. So if you have any questions during, I am monitoring that as we go. I also have Anya in the back that will be responding to questions real time there as well. But we are here for you, so if you have any questions or feedback at all, please feel free to share. But really and truly, we are here to help you plan for your retirement. And really and truly, putting it as simply as possible, retirement planning is simply just looking at where you are today, reflecting on what you want for the future, and then creating a plan to get you there. Ultimately, we're here to try and take a lot of the unpredictability out of retirement planning to make the next portion of your life as predictable as possible. Now, we like to start with your wealth because usually it is I've done these for about 10 years now, and having attended so many workshops, this is where people usually are when they attend our sessions. They are comparing what they're told they earn right now to what they see on the retirement calculator. And this is really where panic starts to ensue. This is really where people really start to freak out. So this is where we like to begin. So what I should say first and foremost, if you're trying to jot down all the slides and everything I'm saying, the recording will be sent out afterwards, but also we will be sending out the full slide deck. So if you're writing incessantly everything I'm saying, please don't worry. But we like to start here because it really is your financial situation that plays a major role in determining if you are or are not ready to retire. Now, when looking at your gross income, this is where you start to panic because this is where you start to wonder how you can retire off of losing maybe 20, 30, maybe even $40,000 in what you're currently earning. But there is a flaw in looking at your gross income. In fact, I actually love the fact that they call it gross income, because if you compare what you're told to earn to what you actually take home, that difference can be pretty gross when you really analyze it. That's why I actually prefer to start looking at your net figures, because that drop isn't nearly as much. If you actually look at your net figures, or in other words, what you actually take home, it actually can be far more revealing, because we all know what we're told we earn isn't actually what we bring home. There is a lot that is taken right off the top. We are in a higher tax bracket. We're still paying into health and life insurance, long-term disability, employment insurance. There's a CPP plan. You're contributing towards your pension plan, college of teachers, union dues. There is a lot of money being taken right off the top. Now, if you compare that to actually what your amounts are going to be in retirement, really the only things that are taken off is a lower tax amount, and also if you opt to purchase insurance or not. And again, that is fully up to you. But so if you actually compare the amounts here, that difference isn't as intimidating. Now, this is going to be no one's situation, but I promise you, if you compare your net amounts and opposed to gross amounts, it's going to be far more revealing to you. But also take a moment and understand the fact that the way you use your money in your retirement is going to be very different as well compared to right now. Because from the amount that you do take home right now, you will be using in a different way, especially in the sense that you're probably taking some of that money and contributing towards your RRSPs and TFSAs. You're basically trying to put some money aside for your retirement. So the money that you do have, a good portion of it is actually being used to prep for your retirement. And again, compare that to when you do retire. When you do retire, you will be using that money. So you'll be using your RRSPs and your TFSAs. So there's going to be an injection of money there. But also at some point in time, you will have access to your CPP and your OES as well. So that's going to be basically the basis of the financial conversation we have today. Your income sources in retirement, and then talking about some of your expenditures in retirement. So let's start with employer pensions, because this basically is what a lot of people see as their direct replacement to their employment income right now. And it really is where a lot of people start. So there are a lot of things that you need to ask yourself. Now, I will just start by saying that I don't represent any pension plan. I don't work for OTPP. I don't work for OMERS if you're a part of the OMERS plan, although I assume that most would be OTPP. Now, as much as I can help you and give you some guidance on some of the steps that you should take, OTPP, they don't really like it when I answer questions on their behalf. So I am here to answer a lot of general questions, but really and truly, the first thing you do want to do is, of course, register for their portal. Make sure you have full access, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have logged in. And in fact, I'm pretty sure after maybe a long day, you maybe even log on and look at that date on the top corner, which is your retirement date. But just make sure that you understand how to use it and know some of the general functions of it. But at some point in time, I always recommend that you call and speak with the representative directly. In fact, I always go further than that and suggest that you call them while you're logged onto the portal. That way they can walk you through certain pages and help you really think about things that maybe you haven't thought of, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Now, this is when you can start to have some fun. This is where you can start calculating different retirement scenarios. You can find out how much you get if you just didn't come back from March break, if you just decide to just retire now and not go back next Monday. You could also find out how much you would get if you retired after your birthday, maybe at the end of the school year, maybe after the holiday season. This is where you can do as many scenarios as you like. And really and truly, the scenarios will be very revealing to you, because it will show you at that point in time what your service or credit years are going to be. If you retire mid-year, it will show you how to get the best five. Now, for the calculation, it is the best five salary, but if you retire mid-year, what they'll do is they'll go back to your sixth highest salary, and then they will fill in the adequate time and to give you your best five. And they'll help you do the calculation. Really, a lot of these workshops in the past would be a good hour or 2 hours of just number crunching. Like if you rewind like 12 years ago, these workshops, people would literally have a pencil, eraser, a ledger, and they would actually do all their calculations. We don't need to do that. This is the power of the calculator. Now, a lot of people, when I attend the live sessions and whatnot, they keep on saying, when can you retire? What's your date? What's your retirement date? And a lot of people, when they talk about that, they're referencing that date on that calculator. Now, that date that so many of you have maybe circled on a calendar or tattooed in your brain, that isn't the date that you're allowed to retire. That's not even the date that you should retire. What that is telling you is the date that you're allowed to retire with an unreduced pension. Okay, that's all it is. It's not the date that you should go or the date that you're allowed to go. And for some people that love what they do, it's not the date that you're forced to go. It is simply the date that you're eligible for your unreduced pension. Now, for the other group here that really they look at that day and thinking, "Oh my God, that's so far away." Some days you may be thinking, "Well, what happens if I do go early?" So again, that date is a date that you can go with unreduced, but sometimes your brain gets going, "Well, what happens if I go early before I'm eligible for my unreduced pension?" This is where a calculation is done to determine what the reduction is. And for OTPP, there are two items that are looked at, and it's looked at as one or the other, meaning they look at the number of points you're away from your pension factor, and they look at the number of years you're away from the retirement age of 65. And based on the number of points away from your factor or years away from your age, there is a reduction based off that criteria. Now, the thing is that they don't add it together. They take a look at both, and then they find out which one is less punitive. Okay, let's say you are 1 year away from hitting your factor, sorry, 1 point away from hitting your factor, but 2 years away from your age. Well, obviously, the 1 point away from your factor is less punitive, so they would take that as your reduction. And again, the beauty is that you don't need to do this calculation on your own. The calculator does all of it for you, right? And this is where we talk about kind of shifting the mindset from beneficiary to survivor. Because right now you probably have a whole bunch of beneficiaries before before you begin collecting your pension. You will need to make decisions on survivors. And here's the thing. This is very unique to each individual because it depends if you're married or not. Okay, that's married or common law. How many kids do you have? Right? Also, further to that, does your child have a disability? How old are they? Are they dependent on you? Are they a full-time student? There is a lot of different unique circumstances here. So this is where I really suggest that every individual contact their pension plan and have a calculation to fully understand how it works, because your survivor is always the natural second in line to receive. But what happens if you wanted to go directly to your children? And this is where in the past I could probably spend a good hour talking about each person's individual circumstance, but OTPP has asked me not to do that because they would rather just take a look at your profile, see exactly what your situation is, and just give you a one-to-one answer. Okay, there's a question that just popped up about the difference between credit years and qualifying year. I could go into the full explanation. I'm going to give a brief answer, but my main answer is that's all defined and shown within the online calculator when you go into the portal. Some of it is actually to help determine it's actually for the calculation. A part of it is actually to determine from that year what goes towards your factor calculation. Okay, two kind of different things, but they contribute in very similar ways. Again, this is actually a perfect question for OTPP when you call them. That's a great question though. But a question that I often get from those within the OTPP pension plan, you'll see in the second bullet there, is, well, what should I leave my partner? Let's say I do have a spouse and they are the next successor to receive my survivor pension. I hear that there's a range that I can allocate. Well, which one should I choose? Well, the default that you would actually allocate if you did nothing. So the amount that is in there as a standard, unless you decide to choose it, is 60%, 60. Now, you could actually increase it up to 65, 70, or 75%. And what that will do by increasing the survivor amount is while it will decrease the amount of each pension payment, the benefit here, if you choose to do so, is that it would increase the amount that your survivor would get if you predeceased them. On the opposite side, you could decrease it from 60 down to 55 or 50. And this does two things. The first thing is that it does increase the pension payment that you would get, but it also would reduce the amount that your survivor would get if you predecease them. Now, why would you choose one versus the other? Well, there's different rationales. Well, the first one is if you are thinking about actually, so one is the question, is your spouse likely to outlive you? Because if you think about it, if and again, this could be a very hard and awkward conversation, but it really is an important conversation to have as you prepare for retirement. Look at each individual's health status, maybe your family longevity, things along those lines. If if you're likely to outlive your partner, then it may be worthwhile to decrease the percentage because they're not likely to receive that anyways. Versus, let's say your partner's in better health, they have family members that live till 105, they're perfect health specimen, which means that they may be actually reliant on your survivor benefit, then it may be worthy to actually look at increasing it to 65, 70, or 75%. Other question is, how much do they actually need your pension? Meaning, do they have their own pension plan? Do you have some really good savings that you can rely upon if you actually passed away before them, right? Another question: if your partner would not really require your pension if they passed away, if you passed away before them, then you may want to consider decreasing. The last is how much pension do you actually need to live the lifestyle that you want? Because the here and now, I mean, we could plan for the future all we want, but some individuals, they need that money right now. Or maybe they have more pension than they need. So that would point them towards possibly decreasing the pension amount to leave more to their survivor. They're all serious conversations that you should have with your partner to actually indicate what your comfort level is. So if you answer yes to any or many of these, you may want to consider increasing. If you answer no, then you may want to consider decreasing. Okay. Okay, there's a couple of questions that came up for those individuals that asked it. That is coming up, I promise. But first, I do want to try and demystify something referred to as a bridge benefit. Now, sometimes people get it right off the bat. I've tried to explain this different ways over the years because this can be a bit elusive at times. It can be a very difficult concept to understand. And some people see it as a great thing. Some people don't like it. So I am just the messenger. So please, please, please don't shoot the messenger. But here's how it works. When you go onto the pension calculator and you do your calculation, as long as your retirement scenario, you're retiring before the age of 65, that amount that you see is going to be two things added together. The amount that you'll see in the calculated amount, if your scenario brings you to under the age of 65, will have your pension, your lifelong pension that you'll always have, but it's going to have a little bit extra referred to as a bridge benefit. So the amount that you see on the calculator is going to have that bridge benefit amount until the age of 65. And the reason why they do that is it's intended to be a benefit because usually pensioners typically, not always, typically have the option to retire before the age of 65. And to help bridge you to that age where you're eligible to receive your CPP and your OAS, that's what the bridge benefit is intended for. But at the age of 65, that's where that bridge amount comes off. Your lifelong pension will continue on forever, but at the age of 65, that's when that slightly higher amount of the bridge benefit comes off. When you go onto your pension calculator, what you probably have seen is that little disclaimer that says at age 65, your pension will reduce by 3.7% or 4.1%, whatever what your calculation is. The algorithm will let you know what the approximate percentage reduction will be at age 65. That's talking about the bridge benefit. Now, some people see it as a punitive thing where they're taking money away from you at age 65. Really, the intent is trying to be a benefit where you're getting a slightly higher amount to bridge you to that age. But if you're retiring at age 60, that thing tends to be quite positive. The question I often get here is, well, what happens if I decide to take my CPP at age 60? Okay, because we'll talk about that next, but you do have the option to take your CPP as early as age 60. Well, what does that do to your bridge benefit, right? Well, it actually doesn't do anything. The bridge benefit always comes off at the age of 65. It's not dependent on when you decide to take your CPP. It is dependent on the age of 65 always. Okay. Okay, there is a great question. So I am going to pause here for a moment and talk about something called a 10-year guarantee. So that is something unique for OTPP. What a 10-year guarantee is, and actually it is perfect that I'm on this slide, is if you opt to get the 10-year guarantee, it guarantees your surviving spouse your full pension. That doesn't include the bridge benefit, so it's your 100% of your lifelong pension for the remainder of the 10 years. So let's say you're you're a little bit worried about your health, or let's say you were contemplating increasing your survivor pension to maybe 70, 75% because your partner would be heavily reliant on your pension if you predeceased them. Well, a 10-year guarantee might be a good option for you because that will guarantee them the full pension for the remainder of the 10 years. So let's say you pass away in your 4th year after you retire, they would get your full pension amount for the remainder, so for the 6 years. And then after the 6-year period, it will go to whatever percentage you allocated when you decided. Okay, so if you're contemplating maybe increasing it because especially this second variable here, they would heavily rely on your pension if you predeceased them, then it may be a rationale for you to actually purchase a 10-year guarantee. Versus if you're in good health and you don't want that permanent reduction because the reduction is going to be 1/10 of 1% of your pension for the entirety that you're collecting. It's not for everyone, so it's actually a great thing to talk to your pension plan about. What I will also say while I'm on this slide too, just in preparation, because I think that it sounds like a lot of people here are quite ready to retire. If you are thinking about maybe decreasing it, let's say your partner has their own pension plan, or you have a lot of investment property, you have a lot of RRSPs that you want to use, so you are thinking about decreasing your pension amount, you may want to actually make that election sooner than later. The thing is that you don't lock in any of your elections until you begin collecting your pension. And to decrease it, your partner does have to sign off. You can't just make this decision unilaterally. In fact, in one of our workshops early last year, someone in the front row, when I was talking about decreasing the pension, looked at their partner and said, if you don't do this chore at home, I'm bringing your pension down to 50%. The look on the partner's face was just hilarious, but horrific at the same time. The thing is that your partner does have to agree to it, which is why if you are contemplating decreasing it, do all the paperwork now, have them sign off on it. And let's say the day before you submit your application to retire, you change your mind, you could always do so. Okay, because you could always make that election before you begin collecting your pension. Okay, so jumping ahead, when to apply. Especially for those of you with a birthday earlier in the month, let's say your birthday is March 9th and you hit your factor and you're so excited to go, you certainly can. But when you decide to retire, you have to realize that the pension is going to start the month following. And if you're retiring, then you're not earning any money that month, which is fine if that's what you choose to do. That's your prerogative. But for some of you who want to continue to have money coming in, sometimes it's suggested that you try and retire at the end of the month rather than earlier on, because if you retired on March 9th or March 10th for that matter, you would not earn any paychecks for the remainder of the month, and the pension payments will just start the following month. Okay, but also make sure that you give plenty of time to actually apply. Usually the pension plan requests or they recommend 1 to 3 months in advance. But there was a question that was asked about, well, when do I actually retire? Let's say I want to finish off the school year. I'm done this year, but I want to retire after the end of the school year. Do I retire at the end of June or do I retire at the end of August? Well, it depends. One of the biggest variables is if you are what's often referred to as a 10-month employee. Now, that's a phrase used by some, but not by all. Basically, what a 10-month employee is for those of you who work 10 months out of the year, and during the 10 months, a portion of it is withheld to pay you for July and August. Okay, so you've already earned that money, but they actually pay you a paycheck over the summer months so that you can continue to actually get a paycheck. Well, here's the thing. By the end of June, you've already earned that money. So for those of you, it usually is strongly recommended that you retire at the end of June, because what would happen then is you get your full payout for July and August, and you would earn your pension payments as of July as well. Okay, so it usually is quite nice because you get paid out and you're earning your pension plan. Now, the other thing though is I often get the question, well, my birthday is in July or my birthday is August 2nd, and I'm so close to hitting my factor or I'm so close to getting unreduced pension. Should I wait until my birthday? Well, I can't tell you what to do because again, this is fully up to you and this is actually for you to determine. But here I suggest you do two things. First is you go onto the pension calculator and you input the scenario where you wait until your birthday and find out what your pension amount will be if you waited until your birthday. And then you do a second scenario where you put the end of June as the date and then compare the amounts. See what the difference is. And then ask yourself, is it worthwhile waiting to your birthday to act, but would it be worth it to actually lose 1 or 2 months worth of pension payment? Okay, because if you wait until August, your pension amount will be up by a little bit. It will increase by a certain amount, but what most would actually find is not worth forfeiting the pension payments for July and August. So the pension plan usually recommends don't wait until you hit don't wait until the August month. It is usually better to go earlier so you're not forfeiting those month's payments. But again, it is up to you. If you're going to live until 110, then it may be worthwhile to actually have that slightly higher amount because over the years it might add up. It really is a very unique circumstance and a decision that you should make. The other reason why you may want to consider waiting until the end of August is, let's say you are on a very high cost drug, where each dose is a few $1,000s plus, and really any employer plan will be better than any retiree plan. So if you could really make very good use out of your pension, your benefits plan over the summer months, that might be another rationale as to why. Okay, so if you answer yes to many or any of these, then you may want to consider the end of August. If you have answered no, then you may want to consider June. Okay. Okay, now how to apply. You do all of it through the portal. It's actually quite easy. In fact, it's too easy. We were joking that some of you may be rushing to retire right after the session. You're enjoying March break so much, you decide not to go back. And if that's you, that's perfectly fine. But some people find it a bit too easy, where I actually got a call a couple years back from someone who said, yeah, you know what, I actually did apply to retire, but now I'm having regrets. It was a really bad day at school, so they actually decided to hit the trigger. If you have any remorse or if you actually want to back out, you always can just call the pension plan. But for OTPP, it is nice and easy. You do all of it through the portal. And as mentioned earlier, they suggest that you do it 1 to 3 months in advance. But there are some documents that you probably want to have at the ready. That would be having proof of identity. That's like a driver's license or a passport, proof of age, proof of marital status. So this is something that you want to do, especially if if you have a divorce or separation, because it mentions here divorce decree, but you actually would need to upload the full separation or divorce agreement just to prove to the pension plan if your pension was negotiated at all as part of the settlement. But if you're married to sometimes one of the more triggering things they say is that you need a copy of your marriage certificate. And we always put it in that place where we know exactly where it is and we're never going to forget. But the number of times I see people panic because they always forget where that place that they'll never forget is. So make sure you actually have that at the ready. Your beneficiary information and your banking information as well. Working for OTPP pension employer, there are some rules around it. So you can ignore the OMERS one if that's not you. Because for OMERS, it's easy. For OMERS, they actually have the choice if they want to continue to earn their pension payments as well as a paycheck, or if they want to start contributing towards their pension again. For OTPP, it is a bit different, where you are able to work up to 50 days for an OTPP participating employer. But if you exceed the number of days, then they consider you re-employed back in education, and then your pension payments will stop. If you do want to maximize the number of days, technically you can finish off the rest of the month where you hit your 50th day. So let's say you hit your 50th day right before March break. You can technically continue to work the rest of March with no penalty. But if you even work one day in April, they consider you re-employed back in education. Your pension payments will not be received for that month, and you need to reapply after, and you can't get that April month back for your pension payment. And you need to track the number of days. They won't let you know when you hit your 50th day, so you just have to be very careful there. Okay, so all of that was employer pensions. Taking a look at the questions. Yep. So one of the questions still lingering is about going at the end of June. And they actually use the phrase double dip. The phrase double dip, what that often means is the suggestion that you go at the end of June. That way you get your money from July and August, and you get your pension payments. Now, that absolutely is correct. Some people see that as double dipping, but here's the thing, you're not really double dipping anything. That money for July and August, you already earned that money. That money is already yours. But absolutely, it's good because you actually have both income sources that you can actually enjoy and kick off your retirement quite well. And the other question is, can you work in other employment positions without worrying about the 50-day? So if it is any other employer that has no affiliation with OTPP, you don't have to worry about the 50-day. If you want to move to BC, where I'm at right now doing presentations, you won't have to worry because it's a completely different pension plan. If you want to work in Quebec, again, a very different pension plan. Even private schools, Montessori's, most of them don't participate in the OTPP pension plan. It's only if you work for an employer that where as a part of your employment, they will start to contribute towards OTPP again. That's where the 50-day cap comes into play. And if you're not sure if the place that you're looking at working is a OTPP participating employer, just call OTPP and ask them. It's they're very good at actually checking their list to see if it would be a concern for you. Now, pensions are often viewed as the sole or only income source in retirement, but I ask you to not forget about the other sources of income that are going to come your way, starting with CPP or the Canada Pension Plan. The amount you get is determined based off of how much you've contributed during your adult life while you're working and when you decide to take your CPP. The first step you want to take is to find out how much your amount is. Okay, you could do that using the My Service Canada account. You can actually request a statement of contributions right now while you're doing your taxes. It's all available on the portal. You could also call them, similar to OTPP, I do suggest you call them at some point in time. That way you can talk about all the unique circumstances, like what happens if you want to dip into the survivor CPP benefit, understanding what your amount is, things of that sort. And they actually are pretty good at answering the phone, except for right now. Not I don't suggest everyone get off this get off this meeting and call them, because they are busy around tax time. But outside of tax time, they usually are pretty good. Or you could visit Service Canada office and ask your questions there. Now, the maximum anyone can receive is $1,364 per month. Or it's around, the average is actually around $758 per month as of last year. Now, this has no reflection on what your amount is going to be. You do want to find out what yours is by requesting a statement of contribution. Then once you have your amount, this is where you can actually start thinking about, well, do you take it early? Do you take it at age 65 at the unreduced amount? Or do you maybe even want to consider postponing it all the way up to age 70? Because there is a bonus if you actually decide to wait 0.7% per month, but there's also a reduction if you do decide to take it early. Okay, so once you have your amount, and we have two examples here. The example on the left here shows if you got the maximum. Now, again, most don't get the maximum, but this is the upper limit extreme. The example on the right is a slightly more modest amount, where it amounts to about $10,000 for the year. Now, again, if you take it early, there is going to be a reduction of 0.6% per month that you take it early. Now, if you take it the full 5 years early, okay, 5 years is 60 months, at 0.6% per month is going to be reduced by 36%. So what was 10,000 is now 6,400. Now you can take it at any point in time before age 65. So you could take it after like 15 months or 25 months. You could take it at any point in time, but the calculation is so where it's going to be reduced by the number of months at a 0.06% per month. Sorry, 0.6% per month. Now, you also have the choice to postpone it, and you get a bonus. And you could see up to a 42% increase in the amount. Now, this does nothing to tell you when you should take it or what the best route for you is. So here are some considerations for you. Okay. First is to understand the relationship or the pros and cons of taking it early versus postponing it. Because here's the thing, by taking it early, you're collecting it for a longer period of time. Like by the end of your 65th year, if you started taking it earlier, you would have accumulated close to $40,000, right? Versus if you just started collecting it at age 65, by the end of that year, it would just be about 10,000. But when you begin collecting your pension, that sets the foundation for all of your future pension payments. So it does start the chain where once you actually begin collecting at age 60, your amounts will go up every year based on the regular increases, but there's not going to be any drastic change. It sets the foundation for all of the future payments. So if you begin collecting it at 65, yeah, you would have accumulated less if you waited at the end of your 65th year, but all your amounts for the future payments are all going to be higher. And if you continue to add all of them up and you track forward to your 80s or even your 90s, there is a point where you actually would have been better off if you were able to wait. And that usually is around the 73rd year, where that's a crossover year where all the accumulated amounts are actually more because you waited. And the same relationship works if you look at age 70, and that crossover age is usually in the 82nd year. Again, this does nothing to tell you what you should do or what is best, because this is a very individual, unique decision that you need to make with your partner. It's a decision that you and your partner need to make together. Now, and this also applies to if you have like a best friend that says you'd be silly if you did it any other way, or that brother-in-law accountant that says you need to do it this way, otherwise it'd be ridiculous if you didn't. Well, everyone's situation is unique. So I will start by saying one thing, and if you take nothing else from the CPP portion, just take this, that this isn't a decision that you need to make in the here and now. Okay, a lot of people feel the need to have this figured out before they even retire. Okay, you don't need to have this figured out when you tell your employer that you're done. You don't need to have this determined when you hand in your retirement letter. This is something that you could decide at any point in time during your retirement. So let's say you retire, you're living off your pension, and you know what? It's enough. Then you have the information there to more accurately determine when is your best time. Versus if you retire and you find your pension isn't quite enough, then you may want to consider drawing upon your CPP at that point in time, but you at least have more information. But also there's a lot of variables shown here on the page that you do want to consider when you're living your retirement lifestyle to help you determine when is the right time. Okay, so the first one is what I just mentioned. Are you able to manage financially if you wait? Can you live off your pension alone, in other words? Okay, the second one is, do you plan to work in your retirement? Okay, because remember, CPP is not tax-free. It's a taxable income source that gets added to your pension. And if you're continuing to work in your retirement, and if you're actually drawing upon your CPP at the same time, it may put you in a higher tax bracket, which means if you remember the page earlier, that doesn't take into account taxes. If a large portion of that is being taken at the highest tax rate, then it may not be as much as you think. And some people may be thinking, yeah, you know what, I'm going to live until 105, and seeing that chart on the previous slide, it was triggering for me, and I want to take it as late as possible. I want to wait till age 70, but how do I get there? Well, don't forget about your RRSPs. RRSPs are undervalued income source in retirement from my perspective. A lot of people have difficulty doing that mental shift to seeing it not as a savings, but I do challenge everyone to see it as an income source that you have full control over. Okay, I'll talk more about that in a moment, but it could be a great way to get you to the age that you want to before collecting your CPP. And the last thing is your longevity. I mentioned in the example earlier, if you have good longevity in your family and you have confidence that you're going to live until your 90s or 100s, that is one variable that you really want to consider when you take your CPP. But if on the flip on the other side is if you have health concerns, if you have family that passes away in their 70s or 80s, then it may be reason enough to just begin collecting it earlier. So just like other slides, if you answered yes to many or any of these, you may want to consider delaying. Answering no, you may want to consider taking it earlier. Okay. Now let's not forget about old age security, or OAS. The monthly payment is age 65. Now, some of you may be in a birth year where it may be between 65 and 67. All of that will be shown on Service Canada. Last year, there were some changes where it did push some of the eligibility years closer to age 67. It's all dependent on your year of birth. But the amount will be the same for everyone as long as you've been a Canadian citizen for a period of time. So while you're in Service Canada, while you're on the phone with them, check in on your OES as well. And the amount that most people get, because this is based on general taxes that are collected, is not like CPP where you're paying a specific amount that is being put to the side that you're guaranteed. This is collected through general taxes, so the amount is going to be the same for everyone at $713.34 per month, and this is reviewed quarterly. Similar to CPP, you can opt to defer it, where you would get an increase. And if one of the reasons why you're deferring it is because your income at that point in time is so high, especially if you're working, this may be a reason why you want to consider postponing it. Because here's the thing, the intent of old age security is to give you some financial security in your older age. But for your accumulated earnings while you're collecting OAS, so this is your pension, if you're working in retirement, your CPP, and this amount for your individual net earnings for the year. So it's on the gross amount. If it exceeds $86,912, and I'm just the messenger again, don't shoot the messenger. The government sees you as financially secure and they begin to claw back a portion of your earnings in the form of taxes. And if your retirement earnings exceed 142,124, the government sees you as very financially secure and they claw back the whole amount. The whole amount is paid back in the form of taxes. Okay, so this is where there's a nice balance that you need to find. And if your brain is kind of going in circles right now because you don't know what to do, I mean, everyone has a different approach to retirement planning. You may feel that, you know what, you have a good pension, your CPP seems good, your expenses are low. I'm done, I'm going to go. That's your way of retirement planning. Some people, they do like to have a pen and paper, try and figure out on their own. But some people take the route of getting a financial advisor or a financial planner to help them determine the right time and the right balance for everything. This might be for you because you may be thinking, yeah, you know what? I want to take my CPP at age 60 because that will bring down my employment income. So it won't affect my OAS as much. That's could be a good rationale, right? Versus, well, it's only high because I'm working until a certain age. So maybe I'll take my OAS at age 67. There's different criteria here, but I repeat what I said earlier. You shouldn't really be bogging yourself down too much right now, trying to make all of these decisions right now. Um, there is some time you can actually make these elections at any point in time in the future. And also now, this is where I challenge everyone here to do that mental shift. So stop seeing retirement savings as a rainy day fund. Like this is why I don't like the word savings, because things like RRSPs and things of that sort, a lot of people that I talk to, they say, yeah, you know what, it's for a rainy day fund. They have best intentions to use it during the retirement, but they can't wrap their head around the whole taxes aspect of it all, which I'll talk about. But while you don't want to deplete it too fast to where you run out too quickly, I find it equally as upsetting if you go through a lot of your retirement and you're in your later retirement in your late 70s, 80s, 90s, and you have so much money there and you can't quite figure out how to get it without the penalty. So I really challenge everyone to not see retirement savings as a savings, but as an income stream that you have full control over. So almost see yourself as your own employee and you want to pay yourself a certain amount every single year. Here's the thing, you have full reign over how much and when so that you can make the most out of it. Okay, because we all kind of inherently have an understanding on how RSPs work for us in the here and now. We have been trying to contribute toward it in our higher earning years to bring down our taxable income. So this whole amount that you see on the screen here, the RRSP contribution, the whole amount, including the amount that would have been taxed, all goes to what you're saving. So that is a great way to utilize the tax system in a legitimate way to save on taxes paid. Well, you can actually have a benefit when you take it out too. Because when you withdraw upon your RRSP, it's taxed on your earnings for that tax year. So if you withdraw in a year where you have less money or you're able to actually control the amount to withdraw a certain amount to bring you below a certain tax level, then is working in your favor, right? And for gratuities, talk to your employer if you have gratuities. RRSPs are an amazing vehicle to actually roll over your gratuity amount, roll over the entire amount if possible. You're allowed to use whatever contribution room you have remaining, but also the CRA does permit you to roll over $2,000 for each year that you taught prior to 1996. Okay. Now, some people ask questions about TFSAs afterwards. So for TFSAs, they kind of work the opposite for RRSPs because I sometimes get the question, how can I save on taxes? How can I pay less taxes now? The thing is that we always have to pay taxes on things. With RRSPs, you are being taxed when you withdraw the amount. But for TFSAs, it almost works the opposite, where you're contributing with after-tax money. When you contribute toward a TFSA, you've already paid taxes on that amount. When you withdraw upon it, that's when we get the benefit because you've already paid taxes on it. When you withdraw the amount, the whole amount, even the earnings that you made on the investments, they're all tax-free at that point in time. So really put simply, if you needed money right now, if you needed an injection of money right now, TFSAs would probably be your best bet. Because if you withdrew upon your RRSPs now, you'd be paying a higher tax bracket. Now, for those of you thinking, well, how can I get to age 65 or age 70 without drawing upon my CPP? Well, don't forget about your RRSPs because you have full control over that money and how much you'll use. And at some point in time, you may want to consider using a combination of RRSPs and TFSAs because taxes should be something that you should have at least in your subconscious to try and make sure that you put yourself in the best position possible. No, I will start by saying you can do something called pension income splitting. And what pension income splitting is for your individual pension amount, if your partner has for their for the taxable earnings that they have, if there is a big difference between what your earnings are and your partner's, then you can split your pension where you take the higher pension and allocate it towards your partner to bring you below a certain marginal tax rate. Okay, because I mentioned earlier something about percentages for taxes. Just to make clear how taxation works in Canada, is there are certain thresholds. So the amount that you earn up to a certain point, you're charged 1% tax. There's another threshold, anything you make up to that is another tax rate. Okay, it's not like the whole tax rate that you are applied to the whole amount, only the amounts over a certain threshold. So if you are in a high tax rate, then what they can do is take a portion of your pension, bring it below a certain marginal tax rate so that it saves your taxes in the long run. And you don't need to do anything special, like any tax software will do this automatically. Any tax person will do it for you automatically. But again, going back to the question, how can I pay less taxes in retirement? The reality is based on whatever your combined taxable income is, it'll dictate the amount that you need to pay in taxes. And just so you're aware, each income source looks at the taxation amount independently. In other words, your pension plan, they don't know how much your CPP is. They don't know when you start taking it. Your pension plan, they won't know if you're collecting your OAS yet. They won't know how much you've accumulated or withdrew for RRSPs. So when your pension plan taxes you, they only tax you on your pension amount by itself. Okay, they don't know how much you've actually withdrew or accumulated for other streams of taxable income. So what this may result in is you did not pay enough taxes come tax time. When you pay taxes, it doesn't mean that you owe money or you owe more money. It just means that you haven't remitted enough taxes throughout the year. Now, some people are fine with this. Some people, they're playing with the stock market and they're enjoying their Nvidia stocks or what have you. So they want the money in the here and now. Okay. And they're fine paying taxes. They just rather get this amount of money throughout the year. And they're aware that come tax time, I need to pay the tax person a certain amount. This could also apply if you want to aggressively pay off your mortgage or you need that injection of money and you're fine paying the tax amount come tax time. Is your prerogative? It's totally up to you. Some people have the mindset where they just want it to be as closely balanced as possible. And if that's you, what you may want to consider doing is a few things. You may want to consider asking the pension plan to pay a higher amount in taxes or deduct a higher amount for taxes. For CPP and OAS, you can voluntarily request that federal taxes be paid. And for RRSPs, is usually recommended, and most financial institutions do this anyways. They will actually suggest that you take a higher amount out so that you actually have some money aside for tax time when it comes to tax time. Now, the last thing we'll say about finances in retirement is there is this belief that when you retire, you need the same amount of income as you do right now to live the same lifestyle. That's not entirely correct. Some people simplify their lives in retirement and they need less, right? Maybe you live in your cottage and sell your primary property. Maybe you kick your kids out of the house and then you have that injection of money there, but also convenience. I mean, how many of us eat out when we could be cooking at home? How many of us maybe hire someone to mow our lawns? There could be some general savings that you see by just having more time on your hands. Some of you can be globetrotters where the amount of money you need increases because you want to travel the world. You want to live permanently on a cruise ship. There's a lot of costs that could be increased as a result of retirement. But also keep in mind different milestones. So let's say you know you're going to pay off your mortgage in 2 years. Well, that will change the amount of money you need annually quite substantially. Um, we're in that sandwich generation, and I don't like sandwich generation because I don't want to call you like the luncheon meat in the middle. So I'll use the Oreo analogy instead. A lot of us are in that Oreo generation where you're the frosting in the middle. So you have kids that need to stay home longer and longer. We also have parents that are living longer and longer as well. And while parents living longer are great and your children being dependent on you, that's sometimes the situation you're in, but it could put financial pressures on you as well. So make sure that you include all of these variables into your financial planning so that you can actually be in your best position to predict some of the unpredictable aspects in your retirement. So that wraps up the financial aspect of it. Now we do have a quick summary of what RTOERO can do in your retirement, and then we will talk about employment benefits afterwards. And we are on track for to wrap up after the hour and a half. So let's start by talking about who RTOERO are. We are a not-for-profit association. We did originally start in Ontario, but we actually have become a national organization with districts from coast to coast. In fact, I'm in BC right now doing presentations here, helping BC educators plan for their retirement. What makes us very unique is the way we are governed. We do have 51 districts, and our board of directors and all other aspects of managing the plan are all run by our members on a volunteer basis. We have over 84,000 members as a result, mostly in Ontario, but we are Canada-wide now. Through our districts, we do offer social engagement opportunities, publications that are sent out to all of our members, including right now, we just recently sent out tax tips. We offer webinars catered to our demographic. We do a lot for political advocacy. We don't back any one particular party, but we as an association survey our members and make sure that we represent and we actually advocate for matters that really impact our members, especially like pharmacare, senior services, things of that sort. We have partnerships with like-minded groups. That way we can continue to actually help our members and Canadians as a whole. And for you, we do have various discount programs that you would get by being a member, including Vengo for discounts for things travel related, car rentals, hotels, attractions, gym memberships, restaurants. They are Canada's leading provider for discounts. We also offer cell phone discounts through TELUS, home and car through Bel Air, hearing aids, eyeglasses, travel. There's a whole bunch of discounts that our members get. Also, if you are planning for travel, we do offer our members trip cancellation coverage through Johnson Insurance. And here's the thing. A lot of people think that there's a fee to a member to be a member, and there was. And actually, there still is if you want to get all of the benefits I just mentioned and you are retired and you're not picking up any of our plans. But most of our members are still working. And knowing that you can't go out to your district's group travel excursion or walking clubs or book clubs or dinners out or coffee time, we make membership free for members while they're still working. Okay, so that's probably most of you right now. There's no cost for you to join right now. And for many members who do end up retiring and picking up our plan, your fee is waived as well because you're paying the premium for assurance. So that will cover all aspects of RTOERO membership. So for most, if not the vast majority of our members, there is no fee to be an RTOERO member. And if you join now, there's no commitment. We do try and like to get the opportunity to speak with our members before they retire, where we actually show them what retirement lifestyle is prior to retirement. And also you can cancel at any point. And I am sorry, there's a question that just popped up about a question from earlier. If I missed something, if you could reiterate the question in the chat box again, I'm sorry if I missed it. I'll try and get to that again. But let's jump to health insurance because many of you probably haven't had to think much about health insurance up until now. For most employers, they would have had to actually provide it. I'm going to pause for a second and get to this one question. If I am separated or divorced, what does my monthly payment look like when retired? Do I receive the full monthly amount even if I'm required to give half my pension until my half runs out? As I will be receiving half of hers. So again, this is something that you will need to actually work with your pension plan about. It really is specific to what's in the separation agreements. So some people, individuals have it where there's no amount that has to be provided as a result of the settlement. Some people have a different percentage. Some people have it set for a particular period of time. Sometimes it's dependent on the children for financial requirement. I don't know what's actually indicated in anyone's specific separation agreements. So this is something best talk to the pension plan about. Okay. And what that will actually determine for your pension payments, again, the pension plan will be able to actually look at the agreement and let you know specifically. Thanks for reiterating. For health insurance, again, many of you may know that you want a benefit plan. Some of you may be unsure if you want a benefit plan, but for most of us, we haven't actually had to actively look for a benefit plan and preparation for retirement. A bit about RTOERO's Entente Insurance Plan. We have been doing this for over 38 years. We are run by our board of directors, which is very, very, very unique in the sense that really most groups have a group that buys an insurance plan from an insurance company. Most plans are designed where you just buy it from like a Sun Life or a Green Shield or a Manulife. RTO is different in that our board of directors, they manage every single aspect of RTOERO, including our benefit plan. So when the premiums are collected, they're not just funneled to an insurance company. We actually do something called, it's in insurance jargon, it's experience rated, kind of like self-insuring, where the money that is collected for the premium, all of it is used for the plan itself. It doesn't go to like Sun Life for them to fully insure, things of that sort. Almost all of the premium collected is used directly to paying the claims. A part of it is used to do the administration, so to answer the phones, to pay the claims. But we're very different I mean, not just because we're a not-for-profit association, but because we mainly self-insure. Um, the premiums that we charge are directly tied to the expenditures for the year. It basically is a simple ledger, money in, money out. So, I mean, for example, if ever we collected more premiums that were needed to pay the claims, we actually would see that reflect in the premiums. And I could think of no better example than what we saw over the pandemic years, like for 2020 and 2021. How many of us were able to go for that massage or get our dental cleanings or even buy glasses for that matter, for that fact? So most insurance groups, they saw more money coming in than claims going out. And if you took a look at the shareholders or the profit margins for those groups during that time, they were pretty impressive for all the wrong reasons. Whereas for RTOERO, we took all that money, we put them in reserves because we knew that there was going to be a point in time with inflationary pressures, pent up demand for certain claims. So not only did we decrease the premium as a result, but being where we are right now in 2024, where we're seeing costs skyrocket, utilization go up, we saw no premium increase at all this year, and that's because we used our reserves to offset the increase needed for premiums because we are experience rated. Okay, premiums are the same for all members regardless of age and health status. We do have a curated type plan that meets the needs of an aging demographic, which I'll speak to in a moment. And we have unmatched coverage from coast to coast. Now, we do have guaranteed acceptance as well. The way insurance works is if you're moving within a group plan to a group plan, you're guaranteed acceptance. So with your plan right now, once you terminate coverage there, you can flow to our plan with guaranteed acceptance. But this also applies if, let's say, you have a plan through your spouse. Okay, you continue on their plan while they're still working. Eventually, let's say they retire or you separate, whatever the reason is. Whenever you lose their plan, even though you're not the policyholder, you're still moving from a group plan to a group plan. You're guaranteed acceptance, right? Let's say you pick up the plan now and your partner is still in their plan, and then they retire and they lose their plan. They could join your plan with guaranteed acceptance. They're just joining as your spouse. So there's this kind of flow where as long as you're in a group plan, you're guaranteed acceptance to any other plan. If you're wondering about some of the other commercially available plans out there, like the Manulife Cover Me or other plans similar, and actually just to make it clear, you probably are covered or aware of the OTIP plan, the Ontario Teachers Insurance Plan. That is a group plan. But the retiree version, the RTIP plan, it's a completely different plan. It is an individual plan. It's a green shield plan that anyone can buy. It's advertised towards teachers or educators, but really anyone can purchase it. It is an individual plan, not a group plan. Okay, so the reality is that you can move from a group plan to a group plan, but if you're in an individual plan, you're kind of stuck there. To move anywhere else, you would need to apply. You probably would need some medical underwriting. Okay. So in terms of guaranteed acceptance, so most of you will be retiring at the end of June if you're finishing off the school year. That means as of July the 1st, you are without coverage. Now, as long as you apply for benefits within our plan within 60 days of that July 1st date, you are guaranteed acceptance. Okay, similar to your pension plan, it is always suggested that you apply in advance. So while you have up to 60 days after, we do suggest that you apply in advance. That way all the paperwork can get processed. So again, the end of June, you technically have until August, but we suggest that you apply sooner than later. Okay, August 31st, you have until in October, but we do suggest that you do as early as June 1st and end of the year. Okay, it's always better to apply in advance, but you are guaranteed acceptance. Let's say you're very busy right now, or you retire on a whim because you just can't take it anymore. And then a few weeks down the line, you decide, yeah, I want benefits. You can still apply. You're guaranteed acceptance. And in fact, we will backdate your eligibility so that any claims that would have been incurred from the day after you retired, all of it is all covered. Okay. The question is, how far in advance do I terminate the group plan and join another plan? Well, you don't technically need to terminate your plan. When you retire, your employer will stop paying your insurance benefits and they will terminate it. So your benefits usually end the day after your retirement date. Okay, and just want to reiterate it one more time in very clear language, your guaranteed acceptance flowing into RTOERO when you're terminating from your employer plan. If you do join your spouse's plan, whenever they terminate their plan, you, your partner, and any eligible kids can all flow to RTOERO with guaranteed acceptance. But let's say you're not retired, you're not collecting your pension yet, but you're still working, but because you're changing your role, your hours aren't quite enough, or let's say you're on disability and your benefits are ending. For any of those reasons, you still can join RTOERO with guaranteed acceptance. Now, let's say you don't pick up the plan right at the onset, or let's say because here, quick tip, while you still have your plan, use it. Especially for dental. Let's say you have that crown that's 8 years old that's kind of feeling a little bit rough. Maybe you should replace it now. Any old fillings that you are fearful that might pop out, you may want to consider replacing it while you still have your benefits. But that might mean that you don't need dental right away when you retire. Well, if you want to apply for any of the benefits later, so anytime after the 60-day window, it doesn't matter if it's 1 year later or 5 years later, for the dental plan, you are guaranteed acceptance. The thing is that you will need to stay in the plan for at least 24 months. That way people don't just buy it, exhaust all the benefits, and then cancel it. That's the only provision, but you are guaranteed acceptance. For hospital or extended healthcare, let's say you don't pick it up now and you want to try and join later. Well, for the health benefits, and this is for most plans, just to make sure that we don't just accept people once they incur that $20,000 expense. There is medical underwriting required if you are purchasing it, not coming from a group plan, just to make sure that we protect the other premium payers. Because if we had it so that anyone can join when they incur that $20,000 expense, it really defeats the purpose of insurance. Okay, there's a few questions coming in. A few of them I will address in a moment. I am just going to try and respect everyone's time, so I will answer the remainder of the questions at the very end. Now, our plan does have single coverage, couple coverage, as well as family coverage. And having all three is really useful because really your situation is likely to change at some point within your retirement. Let's say it's you, your partner, and you have a child. Well, when that one child goes off the plan, you can move from the higher cost family coverage to the lower cost couple coverage. Let's take a look at this a bit different. Let's say you are a single parent with, with two kids. You'd be under the family plan. One child goes off your plan. You and your one remaining child can move to couple. Couple coverage means you and one other person, not you and a spouse. So you can continue in the less expensive couple plan. Then when that child goes off your plan, you can move to single coverage, right? Let's say you remarry, you can always add a spouse as long as you have them apply within 60 days of either marriage or establishing common law. And while it's probably not part of your plans, if you do need to move from couple to family coverage because you have a little surprise in retirement, you can do that as well. But that's the way it flows, although I'm sure most of you probably aren't planning kids in retirement. However, children are eligible up to age 21 or age 30 if they are a full-time student. In preparation for the questions, 3 other notes. If a child does take a gap year, then they would be eligible for coverage once they reestablish full-time student status. Okay, if they want to take a year off, they could join with guaranteed acceptance as once they actually establish full-time student status again. If they have a disability, a functional impairment, and we follow the CRA guidelines, so if they qualify for the disability tax credit, there is no age limit whatsoever. But if you are including a full-time student within your plan while attending a post-secondary, then you may want to either have them opt out of their student plan, or if they're going to be a part of that and they're continuing, you may not want to include them within your benefit unless they absolutely need it. Okay. And for a surviving spouse, they can continue indefinitely as long as they continue to pay the premiums, and they will be a survivor RTOERO member with no membership fee. Now, typically I spend a good half an hour, a good hour on all the different benefits, and it's really hard to summarize it because this is what you're here for. But I will try and touch on all the high points. Now, what I will say though is that it's usually the benefits like paramedical practitioners, vision, things like that that lure people to a certain plan. And I'm not trying to depress anyone, but when you're purchasing health and dental insurance, especially in your older years, you want to make sure that it doesn't just serve your needs for the here and now. Far too often, people look at what their immediate needs are, and they do kind of a mathematical equation to say, well, my glasses and drugs right now are this amount, premium is this much. I'm not sure if it works out in my favor. There's a flaw in looking at insurance that way. Like when we purchase like car insurance, we don't hope we're going to get into a car accident. When we buy life insurance, we don't hope that an accident is going to happen where there's going to be a payout. Or for critical illness, we don't hope that we're going to get that bad diagnosis. We need to take a look at health insurance a bit different to make sure that it is protecting you against the sudden and unforeseen, especially those high cost emergencies. I don't want you to think about all the worst case scenarios, but if you're not sure if you want or need a benefit plan, all I'm suggesting is that you have a plan to cover your financial need should something happen. I mean, we recently had someone traveling in September, and he was traveling in September not because he necessarily wanted to. He just wanted to rub it into his friends, because when you're retired, you don't need to wait for March break, summer break, or winter break. You can travel whenever you want. But he had a cardiac event while traveling in Texas, I believe, when he first retired. Okay. Now, I think that surgery was in the six figures, somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. And even though he was only in the plan for a few months and it paid a few months worth of premium, of course, our plan paid 100% of the whole of the medical costs. And again, this isn't meant to scare you or anything, but it's just that for your retirement, you should have a plan for those unexpected costs, especially in your later retirement. So I am going to start by talking about aids and appliances, because this is, I mean, the area that people often forget about. These are the expenditures where most plans, especially fully insured plans, really cut the cost, because these aren't the attractive benefits. These aren't the ones you say, ooh, I'm looking forward to the incontinence benefit. Like there's benefits here that people don't really want to think about, but for a retiree demographic, they are important because you don't need them now, but you want a plan that will age with you into your 80s, 90s, and 100s. And this is where RTOERO takes a very different approach, where we want to be a true insurance plan. So if you need that $50,000 prosthetic leg, our plan covers 80% of that, where most cover a few hundred or a couple thousand from that only. For mobility aids, we'll pay for all of those expenditures, whereas most plans will cut it back to $500 for all mobility aids combined. There is a very big difference in the way we do our aids and appliances versus others. For vision care, it's $400 every 2 calendar years for corrective vision. For eye exams, it's $150 every 2 years. Where we differ is for cataracts. We do cover a lot more because we do see a greater incidence rate of cataracts. It is on the increase, and most plans have minimal coverage. We've continued to bump up the coverage. For paramedical, it's $1,300 and you have 80% per person per calendar. Sorry, 80% up to $1,300 per person per calendar year. And you can use this maximum however you like. You can use all of it towards massage therapy, all of it towards physiotherapy. There's 18 different practitioners, including like nutritionists, psychological services, speech pathology, things of that sort. And you don't need a doctor's note. That's another way where we differ. And we don't cut back for the per visit maximum. And prescriptions is reimbursed at 85%, and you have a $3,400 amount per person per calendar year. Now, most plans, they will have exclusions. They will operate on and only reimburse on something called a formulary being a subset of all the medications. For RTOERO, we do cover all medications. So while most plans aren't covering things like the RSV vaccine or Ozempic or some of the newer medications, our plan does, whereas most plans do operate on a limited formulary. We also pay for things like travel vaccines, the Shingrix vaccine for shingles, diabetic supplies. We don't cut back on those. For erectile dysfunction medications like Cialis and Viagra, all of that is covered under the plan. And we do pay for both the generic and the brand name. We also partner with Express Scripts. They can get you 90 or 100% reimbursement for your medication costs. They automatically do 100-day supplies. They provide you with a 24/7 pharmacist, and for a low dispensing fee of $8.99, they will dispense it, but they'll also deliver maintenance medications to your house. And they won't just do the Amazon thing where they whip it at your door and they run away. They will make sure you're at home, and they will make sure that you will receive it. And last but not least, for extended healthcare travel. So it is included within the plan at no additional cost. Okay, it's the price is the same regardless when you first join or if you're traveling in your 90s. It's the same for everyone. It's 100% reimbursement, and you get $10 million worth of coverage per person per trip. And for the duration, you get 93 days per trip. Okay, that's not per year. You get 93 days per trip. And if you want to travel, stay longer, then you can always purchase top-up coverage as well. For trip cancellation and interruption, it's also 100%, and it's $6,000 per person per trip. And you can always top up to an additional $6,000 if you need for those more expensive trips. How RTO differs is recognizing our demographic. We do manage the stability clause a bit different. Most groups, they will say if you've ever had a heart condition, you're excluded from coverage for 10 years. If you've ever had a cancer, if you have COPD, there's all these exclusionary wordings where for RTOERO, the way we administrate our plan is just because you have had a diagnosis doesn't mean that you're not healthy and stable and you shouldn't be able to travel. For RTOERO, whatever your past medical diagnosis was, as long as you're medically stable, with or without medication, you're covered. Okay, and we take it even one step further where even if you're not medically stable in one way, let's say you have a completely unrelated medical emergency. Okay, a real call that I got was someone was wanting to travel to Ireland. He's in his 90s. He admits that he is in poor cardiac health, but he's wondering what happens if he rolls his ankle and needs a cast. Well, that ankle roll had nothing to do with his cardiac issue, so our plan would cover that emergency should it have happened. And there's other things too, like if you're improving and there's a discontinuation or reduction of medication, won't disqualify you from coverage. Adjustment for like blood thinners or diabetic medications won't disqualify you. Even changing from medication to a different version of the same medication, it will not disqualify you from coverage. So our plan is really what we're known for. And again, you don't need to actually purchase it on a on-demand needed basis. Only if you want to top up for longer stay trips or more expensive cancellation trips as well. Okay, there's the rates. And again, the slide deck will be shared along with the video afterwards. So all of that was extended healthcare. You get all of it. You also have hospital coverage. You get 95% worth of the semi-private rate reimbursed. But also recognizing that more and more people are being discharged earlier and earlier. We have convalescent care coverage that provides you care for daily activities in your home being done by a personal support worker, reimbursed at 80% up to $75 per day. And last but not least, dental. You have basic coverage. These are for like your recall exams, your emergency exams, polishing, scaling, which is where they pick all the plaque off of your teeth, but also things like fillings and extractions. It's 85% and there's no dollar maximum there. For minor restorative is reimbursed at 80% and you get $800 per person per calendar year. And this includes things like root canals, bone and gum surgeries, and dental implant surgeries as well. In addition to the implant surgeries, there's also the major restorative benefit where it does pay 50% and you get two maximums here. You get $800 for crowns, posts, onlays, and inlays, and an additional $800 for fixed bridges and partial dentures. And with that, this includes like the crown or the bridge or the denture that goes on the implant as well. And we are often asked how our plan compares to the RTIP plan. So if you take a look, we do price quite competitively. There's little differences, like while their maximum for drugs may seem higher, we cover all prescription drugs where they have limitations for like some vaccinations. So the RSV vaccine, for example, some travel vaccines, diabetic supplies over a certain amount. Also like erectile dysfunction medication, they don't cover it. They only cover it up to a certain amount. Paramedicals, similar amounts. Biggest difference is don't need a doctor's note with us, but we also don't cut back the cost of services, whereas RTIP, they do. Vision is close enough. Difference is more the cataract benefit. And for travel, big differences for us is 10 million per trip versus their 10 million per lifetime. But also the way we administrate our stability clause, it's hard to articulate that, but that's probably the biggest difference between RTOERO and RTIP. We do we do administrate our travel plan differently. I don't want to speak of a competing plan, but it's really not an apples to apples comparison. And last but not least, for dental, it is close enough. Biggest difference is around implant coverage. And for the major restorative, you get two $800 maximums versus RTIP, you just get one singular $750 maximum. And to wrap it up, oh, I'm sorry. The premium costs, I'm so sorry. I must have deleted them by accident. If you just give me one moment, Antonella, I'm just going to go to a different slide deck and I will wrap it up. I accidentally deleted some slides that I was not supposed to. So just give me one quick moment here. And I promise I will be wrapping up in probably 3 minutes. Here we go. Okay, just give me one more moment. Here we go. Let me share my screen once more. And here's what it costs. And again, this will be in the slide deck that I shared to you. So we do offer single, couple, and family coverage. And again, it's your choice if you just want to buy extended healthcare by itself, or if you want to get extended healthcare with dental, with hospital, all three. Is basically up to you what your preference is with RTOERO's coverage. And because we live in Ontario, we do have an 8% retail sales tax that needs to be added. So here are the amounts with the RST added. And in Quebec, it's a 9%, and that's the amount there. So with that, I do thank you for your time. I will wrap by saying this is a pretty well-known curve. And what it does say is earlier in our life, happiness tends to be a bit higher. It tends to dip once we hit around this age where some of us are right now, but studies do show that happiness does tend to increase as we progress through our retirement. And while it's not guaranteed, we feel that RTOERO could be a big part of your retirement lifestyle and hope that you join us and look into everything we have to offer. With that, over to you, Antonella.
Thanks, Stephen. And as you get our slide deck up, I appreciate that. We want to thank you for the valuable information. We certainly appreciate the various scenarios that you presented, as it provides a lot to consider. And speaking of consideration, we do want to talk a bit about what is a contracted associate and how does that tie into today's presentation. So the next slide. We are all too aware of the staffing shortages that exist in many employee groups. And in particular, we're starting to see it also in our employee group as principals and vice principals. So our contracted associates are referred to as individuals who are retired principals or vice principals or supervisory officers, and who are currently performing our duties in the role of principal and vice principal. And that could be either on a daily basis or long-term basis, like one semester, etc. The other thing is that members must be in good standing with the Ontario College of Teachers as well. Next slide. So what exactly is a contracted associate, and what are some of the benefits to that? So we know that a lot of our members get called back to fill in for individuals that are either on a medical leave or that they could be short of people because of people who are retiring and exiting. And so what the contracted associate does is, as a board employee, prior to you retiring, you're considered a practicing associate. So you're really covered under your local terms and conditions. But this is not the case when you become a retiree, unless it's explicitly expressed in your terms and conditions. And I have to say, it's really like one or two that have that in their local terms. So really, on the date of your retirement, your status with CPCO as a practicing associate ends, and you no longer have coverage with us unless you become a contracted associate. And in becoming a contracted associate, that allows you to have access to our legal benefits plan, as well as our general counsel where applicable. And where this becomes important is that while you were a practicing associate, if something should come up like an investigation or let's say a public report to the Ontario College of Teachers, where you are named, if it was in your capacity as prior to you retiring, we would cover you. But if it occurs once you've taken up a contracted or a temporary position in your retirement, then unless you have a contracted associate, you are really left on your own. So for the contracted associate, in acquiring this, we would, as a support services team, make our services available to you. And what we're seeing more and more of is that a lot of our retirees and our practicing associates are called to investigations, or they are named in public complaints with Ontario College of Teachers. So as a contracted associate, CPCO would be providing that representation for you during investigations, would be helping you prep, will be helping you, walking you through and supporting you through that, as well as with a public complaint. In addition to the services of support services and the legal benefits plan, you will also have opportunities to access some professional learning, access our website, and our Principals Connection magazine. And I think, when you're looking at either our support services insights, which really give us information and know-how as to emerging themes and trends, it's really important that you keep abreast of these emerging issues so that you can protect yourself with that. And in all these cases here, whether it be a professional learning opportunity or the magazine, which would profile some of those articles, or our associate side, which has the podcast or SSI, they will definitely serve you well in your role in retirement. Next slide, please. And so what is the cost for this? We call that insurance or peace of mind. So really right now, as a retiree, you're only allowed to work up to 50 days. And if that 50th day falls within a certain month, you're allowed to complete that particular month. So as a contracted associate, for those up to 50 days or continuing into ending that particular month. It is 50% of the current practice associated fee. And for the approved amount for 2024-2025, that will amount to $685. If you want the full year because you're putting either your pension on hold or something else comes up, we don't usually have that happening, but if it does, then it will be the full cost, which would be double that price. Next slide. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the contracted associates, certainly you can call us and we can definitely help you through that or talk you through it. Or you can visit our website under membership and becoming an associate and how you would join, and go right to the contracted associates. There you will find a brochure that will outline exactly what it entails to become a contracted associate and what benefits you would gain by doing so. Next slide. And if you just go onto that same slide and scroll down, there you will find a button where you can actually apply to become a contracted associate application. And once you fill out that application, and we'd ask you please to make sure you also put in your personal email, you will then get a confirmation email back that you have applied. So in a nutshell, next slide. We really find a lot of great value in a contracted associate becoming a member. For the security of only $675, we know that nowadays it's a lot more litigious in our work, and it's really important that you have that representation and that you have that support in your role when you come back as a retiree. Again, Gabby Alloy is there that will help you navigate through that. She is in charge of the membership, but certainly if you want any other information, please give us a call and we will definitely be able to help you navigate through that. Again, these slides are all going to be on our website along with the recording of this information, of this webinar, so that you can go back and get that information. I will now turn it to Joe. So thanks, Stephen. Joe? And Joe, you're just going to have to unmute yourself. So
no way.
Thank you.
So thanks, Antonella, and thanks, Stephen from RTO. We certainly, I know there's a lot of information in here, and this is at least the second or third time I've heard this presentation, and I learn something new all the time. And I look forward to listening to the recording again. I do want to take a moment just to thank everybody for being here during March break. I know it's a time, hopefully, that you're getting to relax, recuperate, and rejuvenate yourselves for the months ahead. I do want to also just, we did send out something, if you're contemplating retirement before the end of this school year, we did have an e-blast that went out on March 6th that invited you to put your names into a form so that we could acknowledge your retirement in Principal Connections, our year-end Principal Connections magazine. As of this morning, we've put that link on our website under the support services, retirement services component of the website. So I encourage you, if you're contemplating retirement or you are definitely retiring, please fill out that form and we'll be pleased to acknowledge your retirement and your service to Catholic education throughout your years in our Principal Connections magazine. So just in conclusion, thanks everybody for being here. I know it is a lot of information, and I encourage you to perhaps listen to it again. So have a good day and a good rest of the March break.